"Daddy, it burns." Charlie's scream pierced the quiet afternoon as paint dripped from her eyelashes and soaked through her clothes. I rushed to my daughter, paint-covered wheelchair now ruined, and met Victoria Palmer's cold stare. She had no idea she'd just assaulted the new county sheriff's disabled child. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more videos. Michael Bennett, the new county sheriff, moves to Oak Ridge Estates with his family, keeping his job a secret from neighbors. His daughter Charlie, 14, uses a wheelchair after a car accident damaged her spine. His wife Rebecca teaches at the local elementary school. The neighborhood is controlled by Victoria Palmer, a power-hungry HOA president who enforces rules unfairly. Her husband Richard is a wealthy real estate developer with political connections. When Victoria pours paint on Charlie for violating a minor HOA rule, she has no idea that the quiet father she's bullying has the authority to investigate her corrupt practices. Michael discovers Victoria has been breaking laws and using the HOA to benefit her husband's business, setting the stage for a powerful showdown. The spring morning started with promise. Charlie's eyes had sparkled for the first time in months when she asked if she could paint on the front porch. Michael helped carry her easel outside, his heart lifting at this small victory. Since the accident 8 months ago that crushed her spine, Charlie had barely shown interest in anything, even abandoning her beloved art. "The light is perfect, Dad," Charlie whispered, mixing colors on her palette. "I can see all the purple shadows in the mountains today." Michael squeezed her shoulder before heading inside to make lunch, watching through the window as his daughter's brush moved with growing confidence. Rebecca texted from school, "How's she doing?" He sent back a photo of Charlie painting, captioned "Progress." The screech of tires interrupted the peaceful scene. Victoria Palmer's white SUV halted at their curb, and the HOA president marched up their walkway, clipboard in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her perfectly highlighted hair. "Excuse me." Victoria's voice cut through the air. "What do you think you're doing?" Charlie looked up startled. "I'm just painting the mountains, ma'am." "This is a direct violation of HOA Regulation 15B. Victoria thrust a paper toward Charlie. "No unsightly activities visible from the street. This isn't an art studio." Michael rushed outside as Charlie tried explaining, "But I'm not hurting anything." "Rules are rules. This neighborhood maintains its value through strict standards," Victoria declared, looking disapprovingly at the wheelchair ramp they'd installed. "She's just painting," Michael said calmly. "There's nothing in the bylaws against that." Victoria's face flushed. "I determine what violates the aesthetic standards." She gestured dramatically and deliberately swung her arm across Charlie's setup. Paint cans toppled, splashing vibrant blues and purples across Charlie's lap, splattering her face and soaking into her wheelchair cushion. Charlie gasped as cold paint ran down her arms and into her eyes. "Oops," Victoria said without a hint of remorse. "Looks like your mess just got messier." "Dad, it burns." Charlie cried out, paint dripping from her eyelashes. Michael rushed forward with a garden towel, gently wiping her face as she whimpered in pain. "What kind of paint is this?" he demanded, noticing the chemical smell. Victoria shrugged. "How should I know? You shouldn't have violated the rules." Rebecca arrived within minutes of Michael's panicked call, her classroom left in the hands of a teaching assistant. She gasped at the sight of their daughter covered in blue and purple splotches, eyes red and swollen. "We need to get her to the ER now," Rebecca said, examining the paint cans. "This is oil-based with heavy solvents. It could cause serious damage to her eyes." The emergency room doctor worked methodically, flushing Charlie's eyes repeatedly while a nurse carefully cleaned paint from her hair. The specialized eye wash procedure was excruciating for Charlie, who gripped her parents' hands so tightly their fingers turned white. "She's lucky you got her here quickly," the doctor explained. "Another hour and we might be talking about permanent corneal damage. As it is, she'll need these special drops every 4 hours for the next week." While Charlie received treatment, Michael inspected her ruined wheelchair in the hospital parking lot. The custom-fitted cushion was saturated with paint, the control panel for the motorized assistance compromised by liquid seeping into the electronics. The rehabilitation center had warned them that a replacement would cost nearly $6,000, money they didn't have after Charlie's previous medical bills. Back home that evening, Charlie refused dinner. She sat silently by her bedroom window, staring out but not really seeing. "Honey, maybe tomorrow we can set up your easel in the backyard instead," Rebecca suggested softly. Charlie shook her head. "I don't want to paint anymore." Over the following days, Charlie flinched at the sound of car doors closing. She refused physical therapy appointments, claiming illness. When neighborhood children came to visit, she asked her parents to say she was sleeping. The night terrors returned, Charlie waking up screaming that she couldn't see, that paint was drowning her. Michael would hold her until she fell back asleep, his heart breaking as months of hard-won progress unraveled before his eyes. In his home office, Michael spread the HOA financial records across his desk. As sheriff, he had access to resources most residents didn't, and what he found made his blood boil. 3 days after the paint incident, while Charlie still applied eye drops and refused to venture outside, Michael discovered Victoria Palmer had withdrawn over $45,000 in miscellaneous maintenance expenses, without any contractor receipts. The HOA bank statements showed regular transfers to a company called Palmer Property Solutions, owned by her husband Richard. Michael made discreet calls to the county clerk, property assessor, and permit office. Richard Palmer's development company had purchased several foreclosed properties in Oak Ridge estates at suspiciously low prices, properties that had been hit with enormous HOA fines before the owners were forced to sell. "Sheriff Bennett," whispered Donna from the permit office, "those Palmer applications always get rushed through while everyone else waits months. Richard plays golf with the commissioner every Sunday." Michael drove through the neighborhood in an unmarked car, noting homes with violation notices. A clear pattern emerged. A disabled veteran with a wheelchair ramp similar to Charlie's had 5 citations taped to his door. An elderly widow had been fined for unauthorized ornamental fixtures, bird feeders her late husband had built. The Ramirez family, the only Hispanic homeowners in the community, had been cited weekly for excessive vehicles when relatives visited on Sundays. Meanwhile, Victoria's friend Susan regularly hosted weekend parties with cars lining both sides of the street without consequence. Mrs. Chin, a single mother who worked night shifts as a nurse, showed Michael her file of harassment, citations for putting her garbage out too early, having toys visible in her yard, and excessive holiday decorations during Chinese New Year. "What's most disturbing," Michael told Rebecca that night while showing her his evidence, "is how they're targeting people who can't fight back, elderly residents, working parents, people who can't afford lawyers." A hand-drawn map on Michael's desk connected Victoria to each complaint, each foreclosure, each intimidated resident, creating a web of abuse that had trapped their entire community in fear. Michael invited Mr. Garcia, the veteran from 2 doors down, for coffee at a diner 15 minutes outside Oak Ridge Estates. "I'm not sure why we had to meet all the way out here," Mr. Garcia said, his weathered hands wrapped around his mug. "Privacy," Michael replied, glancing around the nearly empty restaurant. "I'm investigating Victoria Palmer." Mr. Garcia's posture changed immediately. He sat straighter, voice dropping to a whisper. "What did she do to you?" "She poured paint on my daughter. Charlie has chemical burns and her wheelchair was ruined." Mr. Garcia's face darkened. "That woman is poison. She fined me $750 for my flagpole. Claimed the American flag was an unauthorized display. My son died serving under that flag in Afghanistan." Michael nodded, pushing a notepad across the table. "I need you to write down everything, dates, amounts, copies of notices. And I need to know who else has stories to tell." By the end of the week, Michael had quietly met with 17 households. Mrs. Abernathy, a grandmother raising her grandson with cerebral palsy, showed him the $1,200 bill for unauthorized structural modifications after installing a small ramp. "I couldn't pay it on my fixed income," she explained. Victoria offered to waive the fees if I'd consider downsizing to a more suitable community. Dr. Williams, the only black family in Oak Ridge, had been cited 8 times for their son practicing basketball in their own driveway. "Excessive noise and unauthorized sporting equipment visible from the street," the citation read. The Patels shared photos of their Hindu shrine in their backyard that Victoria claimed was an unauthorized religious structure, despite being completely invisible from the street. On Saturday evening, Michael gathered everyone in the basement of the public library. 23 families attended, each with documentation of Victoria's reign of terror. "We have to be careful," Michael warned. "Victoria and Richard have connections throughout the county. What can we possibly do?" Miss Chin asked. "We've complained before. Nothing changes." Michael stood tall. "I haven't been completely honest with you all. I'm not just a new homeowner in Oak Ridge." He pulled out his badge. "I'm Sheriff Michael Bennett. And what Victoria is doing isn't just unfair, it's illegal." The room erupted in whispers as Michael laid out his plan. "There's an HOA meeting next Friday. Victoria is trying to force us to sell our home after what she did to Charlie. That's where we'll make our stand." The community center buzzed with nervous energy. Twice as many residents as usual filled the chairs. Victoria sat at the front table, a stack of folders before her, looking smug in her expensive blazer. Richard stood near the door, greeting people with politician-perfect smiles. "First order of business," Victoria announced, tapping her gavel. "Property violations at 423 Pinecrest Drive." Michael felt Rebecca squeeze his hand as their address was called. "The Bennett family has multiple violations," Victoria continued. "Unauthorized recreational equipment visible from the street, installation of accessibility modifications without proper approval, and hostile behavior toward HOA officers." Michael stood, calmly walking to the center of the room. "You're referring to my daughter's painting easel, our wheelchair ramp, and my objection to you assaulting my child?" Victoria's smile tightened. "The bylaws clearly state." "Before we discuss bylaws," Michael interrupted, "I'd like to address the board's financial reports." "That's not on the agenda," Richard called from the back. "I'm making a motion to amend the agenda," Mrs. Abernathy announced, standing shakily with her cane. "Second," called Mr. Garcia. Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Fine. You have 3 minutes." Michael connected his laptop to the projector. The HOA's bank statements appeared on screen. "For the past 2 years, approximately 30% of our HOA fees have been directed to Palmer Property Solutions for emergency maintenance, without competitive bidding." Victoria's face flushed. "Those were necessary expenses. Like the $12,000 for landscape emergency services last April?" Michael clicked to the next slide. "The county has no record of any permits pulled for this work. No other landscaping companies were asked to bid." Richard stepped forward. "Now see here. And what about these properties?" Michael displayed a map of the neighborhood with several homes highlighted. Each one received multiple HOA violations, resulting in fines exceeding $5,000. Each homeowner was eventually forced to sell, at an average of 22% below market value. And who purchased every single one? Palmer Development Group. The room erupted in murmurs. "You're out of line," Victoria snapped, banging her gavel. "No, what's out of line is using the HOA as your personal enrichment fund." Michael turned to face the residents. "What's out of line is targeting vulnerable homeowners with selective enforcement to force them out so your husband can buy their properties cheaply." "You have no proof," Richard shouted. Michael pulled out his badge, letting it catch the light. "Sheriff Michael Bennett, Colorado Springs County. I have subpoenaed your bank records, correspondence, and county filings. But more importantly, I have something else." He motioned to the back where Deputy Rodriguez rolled in a TV. The screen flickered on, showing Victoria on the Bennett's porch, deliberately knocking over paint onto Charlie. "My security cameras captured you assaulting my 14-year-old disabled daughter," Michael said quietly. "You caused her chemical burns requiring emergency treatment. You destroyed medical equipment worth thousands of dollars." Victoria stood, pointing a trembling finger. "You can't use your position like this. It's a conflict of interest. I'm not here as sheriff tonight. I'm here as Charlie's father and your neighbor." Michael turned to the stunned residents. "But tomorrow morning I'll be at the courthouse filing criminal charges for assault, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy." Richard lunged forward, grabbing Victoria's arm. "This meeting is adjourned," he announced, pulling her toward the exit. "Actually," Mrs. Abernathy called out, "according to our bylaws, we need a motion and a second to adjourn. And before that happens, I move to immediately remove the current board and elect interim officers." "Second," came a chorus of voices. Victoria froze in the doorway, watching as her neighbors stood one by one. The community she had terrorized was finding its voice. "All in favor?" Mr. Garcia called out. A forest of hands rose in the air. "Motion carries," he announced as Victoria and Richard fled through the exit. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters the following Tuesday. Michael stood in his full sheriff's uniform beside the district attorney. "Today we filed charges against Victoria and Richard Palmer for multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, assault on a disabled minor, and conspiracy," the DA announced. "The investigation has revealed a pattern of using homeowners association authority to target vulnerable residents and manipulate property values." Cameras flashed as Victoria and Richard were escorted by deputies, handcuffed, through the side entrance. Later that evening, neighbors gathered on the Bennett's lawn. Mr. Garcia brought his grill. The Patels shared homemade samosas. Mrs. Abernathy's grandson played with other neighborhood children on the front lawn, something Victoria had explicitly forbidden. Rebecca answered a knock at the door to find Mrs. Chen holding a package. It's for Charlie, she explained. We all pitched in. Upstairs, Charlie sat by her window watching the gathering from a distance. She hadn't left her room since the incident. Someone has a present for you, Rebecca said, setting the box on Charlie's bed. Charlie opened it slowly, gasping when she saw the professional art supplies inside: brushes, paints, and a portable easel with a card signed by dozens of neighbors. There's more, Michael said, wheeling in her old wheelchair, now completely transformed. The frame gleamed with a fresh blue paint job, and the wheels and back featured a beautiful mountain landscape design. Mr. Takahashi from the auto body shop restored it, Michael explained. He said the control panel works perfectly again. Charlie ran her fingers over the painted mountains, tears filling her eyes. And one more thing, Rebecca added. The HOA is organizing a community art day in the park this weekend. They want you to be the guest of honor. Charlie looked up, uncertain. But what if she comes back? Michael knelt beside her chair. Victoria won't be back for a very long time. And this neighborhood belongs to all of us now. The park bloomed with activity on Saturday morning. Easels and canvases dotted the grass. Children ran with paintbrushes, some more paint on their faces than on their papers. Residents who had barely spoken now chatted like old friends, united by their shared experience. Charlie hesitated at the edge of the gathering, gripping her wheelchair armrests. Mr. Garcia approached her first. There she is, our artist in residence. He gestured to the center of the park, where a large blank canvas stood on a special stand. We've been waiting for you to show us how it's done. Mrs. Abernathy's grandson rolled over in his wheelchair. I've never painted before. Will you help me? Charlie's expression softened. I'm not sure I'm very good. Better than us, Dr. Williams laughed, showing his attempt at painting the mountains. We need your expertise. Step by step, Charlie moved into the crowd. Neighbors patted her shoulder. Children asked her advice on mixing colors. For the first time in weeks, she smiled, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. At the community center a month later, the new HOA board unveiled its revised bylaws. Michael and Rebecca sat proudly as Charlie wheeled herself to the front. The following changes will take effect immediately, announced Mrs. Abernathy, the interim president. All homes may display flags, religious symbols, and cultural decorations. Accessibility modifications require notification but not approval. Children may play outside their homes without restriction. The room applauded each change. Finally, Mrs. Abernathy continued, we've selected a new logo for our community signage, created by our very own Charlie Bennett. The cover was pulled back, revealing Charlie's painting, the mountain view from their neighborhood, with homes of different colors and styles beneath it, and diverse hands of all sizes joined in a circle around the border. This is what community should be, Mrs. Abernathy said. Not uniform and controlled, but diverse and supportive. As summer turned to fall, Michael received updates about the Palmers. Victoria had accepted a plea deal, 3 years in prison, restitution to all affected homeowners, and a lifetime ban from serving on any homeowners association. Richard's company was bankrupt, his developments halted as investigators uncovered more fraudulent dealings. But the real victory was at home. Charlie had started high school, her art teacher already identifying her talent for a possible scholarship. The neighbors continued their monthly art gatherings, with Charlie teaching techniques to children and adults alike. One evening, as Michael helped Charlie store her supplies after an outdoor painting session, she paused, looking across their front lawn where several neighbors waved as they walked by. Dad, she said quietly, I'm glad we didn't move away. Michael smiled, recalling how close they'd come to giving up their home. Me too, Charlie. Sometimes, she continued, her eyes on the mountain sunset she loved to paint, bad things have to happen before good things can start. Michael watched his daughter begin sketching the neighbors walking together, her hands steady, her face peaceful. Victoria Palmer had tried to break their daughter's spirit with cruelty and paint. Instead, she had inadvertently helped create something beautiful, a truly united community where a disabled girl could finally feel she belonged.